Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome back to Heroes of Might and Magic 2. This is going to be the continuation from the previous playthrough that we had on stream. That will be the Forsaken Lands playthrough. A really interesting scenario. 4 players, medium-sized map, so the quarters are pretty tight. We started off in the red position in the previous playthroughs, and so I wanted to see this playthrough through, and we started off as the Necromancers, and I said, well, let's try something else because we weren't having an awful lot of luck, but I am determined to make this happen. And so we're going to be loading right back in as the red player in the bottom left position. As the Necromancers, I have a little bit of a new strategy here. If you notice, I'm taking gold not once, not twice, but 3 times here. That's not really to be surprising, but the real thing here is that if I was to find a 2,000 gold or 1,500 experience option, whereas before I've taken nothing but gold because on impossible difficulty, that makes a lot of sense. I said to myself, look, if I can get a really good ratio on experience, maybe it's worth it to me to get a Necromancer hero up to level 2 so that maybe, just maybe, they could get advanced necromancy, going from 10% troops returned to you up to 20% troops. Yeah, awful big deal when we have a throng of, or rather a zounds of peasants and a legion of peasants to go through. So there I am making this decision, 1,500 experience. That is going to be the plan. Notice that we are completely out of gold. We've found a way to purchase ourselves into 2 barbarians with a 3rd in our castle, but ultimately I am happy to wait for that 3rd barbarian because picking up the advanced necromancy there, it makes it very much worthwhile to me. And surprisingly, we never really considered, of all the different shooters and the ranged creatures, how would barbarians work with this sort of playthrough, with this sort of interesting thing. On the one hand, you got the halflings that are going to do between 1 to 3 damage versus the orcs who are going to do 2 to 3 damage. Orcs are going to be a little bit slower, but their damage is going to be more consistent and it's going to be a little bit higher. And so the fact that we were able to get 3 barbarians rolled right one after the other was really stupendous. It made me want to say to myself, look, I don't want any other troops. I don't want to wait any additional time in order to fight this fight. I think I'm just going to fight this fight with not just neutral morale or even negative morale. I'm going to fight this fight with orcs and goblins and not a whole lot else, and I'm going to use the good luck to my advantage. I'm going to see if I can roll through this first fight. As you can see here, I'm just trying to make sure that I get every ounce of goblin power I possibly can, trading off single stacks of skeletons to go into those excess hero armies, and then letting those final goblins somehow eventually make it over to Roxana. It wasn't very clean, but sometimes the logistics just don't clean up the way you'd like. So we're going to keep the orcs at the very top of the screen, and note that we're keeping our power stack at the bottom, our 49 goblins. And why is that? I do that in this case because I want to use the single stacks to potentially take some retaliation. Unlike previous fights that we fought, this auto combat indicates that we are going to have a victory here. That is amazing. That is fantastic. And so the fact that the AI already thinks we're going to win feels good to me. As I'm lining up my goblins here, I realize something. I have an opportunity to play with terrain here, and at first glance it didn't look like there was much terrain at all, but because the peasants are going to want to take the most direct, unobstructed route towards the orcs, and because we've built this solid wall, this solid line of goblins there, we are able to make the peasants go all the way around, and we're actually going to see that several times in this video. Sometimes it works out exceptionally well and you fall into this nifty little strategy, and sometimes you just kind of get lucky. This felt more like one of those times that you get lucky because at first glance, again, you don't really look at the terrain here and think to yourself, I can use this to my advantage. It just so happened that it worked out really, really well. And so one of the nice principles I like to use for Heroes of Might and Magic 2 is trying to separate fights. If I have to be crushed under the weight of 500 peasants all at once, I'm absolutely going to take a beating. But if I can fight 250 at one time and 250 at the second time, then I'll be doing much better. So we got 47 peasants down to 9 plus 27 there at the bottom. Probably I'm thinking here, do I need to start attacking those stacks with my big stack of 49? 49 goblins can do an absolute wallop worth of damage, and I'm trying to just keep that in mind as I'm deciding where do I go, what do I do here. 9 peasants, not too worried about those ones. We're going to let the 49 goblins attack the 27. As you can see, we're going to do somewhere between 29 to 137 damage, and so really these goblins could potentially one-shot either of these big stacks. We will see if they get the opportunity to get a nice meaty thwack off. Only one of our single stacks of goblins has gone down. I feel happy about that. And then the orcs right there are officially out of shots. That is one of the major downfalls to the orcs, is that, yeah, they are going to run out of shots at some point. I'm trying to figure out, how do I want to fight this fight with the goblins? I don't want to take an extra shot more than I have to. And so once again, I'm going to use the terrain to try and split up these fights. Let's keep the orcs completely out of the way. And let's hope that we can get these 88 and these 52 peasants to go around the terrain, one on the left side and one on the right side. And as you can see, we absolutely made that work. Knowing that the goblins can clean up one whole single stack by themselves if necessary, we're going to see that that's going to be pretty darn effective for us. The morale was just the icing on the cake, but we're happy when things work out like that all the same. That is going to cost us, it looks like that was about 12 goblins or so. If we had rolled the high end of damage on the first spot, we would have been in a great spot, would have taken no losses, but 100 skeletons. We picked up 100 skeletons, and it's worth noting that we just got the expert necromancy for this upcoming fight, when there's going to be a legion of peasants that we can harvest and take their calcium for ourselves. This is one of the few times that I was really happy to see an artifact spawn in for us. Usually for these treasure chests, it took me lots of reloads to get some of the fights that I wanted. This playthrough here, this video as it is currently stands, there was no cutting or no editing. Everything that you see in this video is going to be one complete playthrough, but it did take several instances of trying to make sure I got the right thing. Unfortunately, if you had multiple instances where you just had necromancers on top of necromancers, who wanted to join you from your castle that you could hire in the tavern, then you ended up having a really, really bad time. You got to have some of the early ranged damage. That was one of the nice things that we had talked about on stream, as once again we try and use the terrain to our advantage. You see goblins going to the south rather than going up through the northern territories. But we had talked about on stream how the Necromancer faction, it makes a lot of sense to try and use them, because hey, if you can kill some peasants, you're going to get a big snowball stack of the necromancers. But the map is kind of balanced, because necromancers in and of themselves do not have a lot of ranged damage to take some of those early fights. It's one of those small nuances that I don't think that people give credit for to the original developers of Heroes of Might and Magic 2. I think that that was an incredibly purposeful decision that they made as we take the experience here. And that just makes sense. If you're going to have the advantage of being able to roll a gigantic skeleton snowball, then you better make sure that there's some limitations on it. Otherwise, the Necromancer faction, or whoever is going to try and get that early game advantage, they are going to spiral out of control. And I think that we might be seeing something like that here. I don't want to spoil it for you, but things are looking pretty darn good. Especially if you watched the previous playthrough, then you will absolutely be aware that this is the exact start that we need. We're investing gold into our Necromancer castle here. That was going to be the graveyard. At this point, there's nothing else on my radar that says to me, hey, we should save gold or resources or anything like that. It's a good castle. And if we're able to get one of each mine, like we know is just outside of our main area here, then getting the bone dragons is an absolute snap. It's a breeze. The laboratory is a great pickup. Bone dragons are pretty darn good. And even though you like the base level skeletons, yeah, you would much rather prefer to have some big winged beasts. Once again, you see us trying to play here with terrain. This fight is going to go pretty well for us, because as good as 49 goblins were at trying to kill one full stack, the damage from 117 skeletons is absolutely fantastic. The only thing that we cannot do is take a hit from the peasants onto the skeleton snack. Snack? They're a stack. They're not a snack. A snack is something you eat, like peanut butter and crackers, or peanut butter and apples, or peanut butter and jelly. Yeah, that's a snack. No. This was a skeleton stack. But yeah, if the peasants get that first shot off, you're going to have a real bad time. Note that that is the second time that the orcs have lost their turn. They are the stack that matters the most in this fight. To lose the damage from those 13 orcs, not once, but twice, that really causes me some issues. Really causes me some grief. We are trying to play with train one more time here. I'm using the single stack there to try and make sure that the big stack of skeletons is blocked off from that 249 peasants to the leftmost side. And I think it's going to work out okay, fine here. You're going to lose another goblin there, but look at the damage. Yeah, 249 peasants goes down, and very, very quickly we are going to see ourselves loving the huge stack of skeletons. That was 1,000 peasants that just went down, and so with the expert necromancy, we pick ourselves up 300 skeletons, folks. We have over 440 skeletons. We are nearly at 450 skeletons. Do you think that that's a good advantage? This was the playthrough that we always wanted. This was it. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you, though. There's gonna be some twists and turns. If you're looking at this and saying, oh, FixFox has it in the bag and he reloaded until he got the exact perfect start, just you wait. Just you wait. Maybe you're going to be disappointed in me, or maybe we're going to get another opportunity to see some advantages and some learning opportunities, ways that I like to improve, ways that I can do better. And really, truly, there's going to be an awful lot of opportunities for me to grow in this scenario. Just you wait. We're fighting all these fights at this point. Sometimes you're going to see FixFox just take the losses. The auto combat saves so much time, but early on I say to myself, well, I'd really prefer to try and save these skeletons. I don't know how important keeping this stack of skeletons alive is going to be. And so because I do not know, we might as well keep everybody alive for now. The choice between expert wisdom there or the basic scouting, I don't really know much about this map. I know that there's some nice things in the very center of the map, but more than that, I don't really know. And I don't think that I'm going to be getting up to 5th level spells anytime soon. And so in this instance, I do take the scouting. It's a bit of an early game investment to try and make some more appropriate decisions early on, and it will pay off. It will pay off. But I like to consider that in a lot of instances, as we pick up the pyramid, there is no wrong or right decision in Heroes of Might and Magic. Clearly, that's not true. Like, there's some choices that are clearly just incorrect. But for the most part, the majority of choices are going to be either better or worse, but only when you compare them one to the other. Folks, we just picked up another 11 orcs there. And I do recall at this point that there is a hill fort, but it's a little bit further away from our position than I would like. We're taking a look here. We've got one of each mine, except for the sulfur mine. So for that reason, we are going to go out of our way. It's highly likely that these orcs are going to want to run, but just in case they don't, I'm going to split these skeletons into 3 stacks. That's going to be 3 stacks of 142. Is it better to keep one big power stack, or is it better to spread your forces around? It really depends on the fight. If I'm going against ranged shooters there, it might save me 1 additional salvo worth of damage from those orcs. Had they stayed, had I wanted to fight them, I did not think that I would be able to recoup my losses from getting those orcs dead, and so I decided to let them run. We do see a barbarian town pretty much north of our Necromancer castle, and we also do see, it looks to be like a sorceress town in the cracked earth to the east there. And so we have some opportunities. It's only 250 gold per day, but that could be useful. Witch's Hut with the diplomacy. I always love the diplomacy. I think that we saw in the previous scenario that being able to run away and maintain your forces, maintain your troop sizes, even if you are overwhelmed, is invaluable. I think that a lot of times people say, well, diplomacy is not broken like it is in Heroes 3, and so therefore it's just not broken, it's just not worth it. I disagree. If you're comparing it to Heroes 3, then yes, certainly the effect size is quite different, but in Heroes 2, being able to run whenever you want to, there is something to be said about that. We are sneakily taking 17 of those nomads away from that nomad's tent. We're going to bring those into our army, and if you notice, we went immediately south with those forces. I'm not sure where the enemy is. There's so much darkness on the map. We're trying to scout effectively, but we're also trying to be safe, and if you purchase 17 nomads, but they don't have any other forces to support them, then they might go down without any satisfaction on your part. Notice the morale. We're down to the -2 morale. going to be a little bit tough there to deal with since we have troops of 3 alignments and the undead in the group. But so long as we don't get more bad morale, and so long as our power stack truly is the skeletons, then the orcs and the nomads, they are simply going to be some supporting cast types of troops. But you never know. You never know. If the choice is have bad morale and hope for the best, or if the choice is to not bring those troops around, I think it's generally better to bring the troops. There are times where I will get rid of 1 or 2 small stacks of troops, or 17 goblins, for example. You might even see me dismiss 17 goblins at some point, just because I say to myself, you know what, it's not worth the negative morale. You got to be thinking about those things, folks. We got Castor, who is on the map there as a wizard. We've also got Jezebel under some heavy duress from Craghack. Craghack being the yellow player and Castor being the orange player. Now, we do know that our player option, the alternative to where we started off in the red position, is the green position. And so every single game you're going to have the yellow barbarians and you are going to have the orange warlocks. That's pretty important, because what you have there is 2 factions that dominate the game at different points. You have the barbarians, who are definitely early game powerhouses and they're fantastic at what they do. And then you also have the warlocks, who are going to scale into the late game very well and very effectively. And this map, I believe, is set up from our previous playthroughs. We saw into the warlocks territory that they've got sufficient sulfur to get into dragons. So if that's the case, then we can just plan on them being so big and scary. And so then the question really becomes, okay, assuming that we can withstand this onslaught from our enemies, where do we go? What do we do? Do we focus on the early game threat with the barbarians, or do we try and prevent the warlocks from scaling up? It's a really tough question. Right here, I'm asking myself, look, am I able to get to the laboratory? Am I able to get the 10 sulfur for the mausoleum and then the 5 sulfur in addition to that for the laboratory? And I decided, no, I can't. And because I can't, then I'm going to go into the Thieves Guild and then the mansion for the vampires. You might as well get whatever troops you can. I wasn't sure if I wanted to get the vampires because that's a pretty heavy wood investment. It is 10 wood for the mausoleum as well. There's also an investment of 5 wood with the laboratory, and there's just not enough wood to go around. We're not going to go into the water this time, though. We have determined that there's absolutely nothing in the water. No flotsam, no shipwreck survivors. There's no advantages to be had at sea. And still, we wanted to make sure that we had some other opportunities available for us. We just needed to make the best decisions. Folks, picking up Mass Curse, there's a really nice deal. If the enemy has some ranged enemies that can threaten our big stack of skeletons, then there's no question in what we should do. We should Mass Curse them, and we should just withstand the damage as much as possible. How quickly can the enemy defeat 400 skeletons? I ask you, it can't be that much. Folks, I'm at the crossroads there with Roxana. I don't know if I should go north. I don't know if I should go south, but I see that magic well to the south, and I know that Roxana has plenty of knowledge, but not a lot of spell points. We need to recoup those losses, and so we are going to send Roxana to the south instead of to the north, because that's going to take us to our magic well. I do not like this, though. I see a lot of pressure from orange, of course, being on the left side of the map, and then yellow being on the right side of the map. And so while I'm dealing with yellow and I'm trying to take out this early game threat with the barbarians, the warlocks, I'm worried, are going to start attacking my castle. Folks, I see a yellow castle here, and I'm seeing Jacqueline. I'd say, okay, I could probably fight this fight. 400 skeletons, not a problem. Let me fight this fight because it's day 1. If I don't fight this fight now, I'm going to have to deal with more troops in one day. So let me fight this fight, and then I'm gonna roll that fight into this dragon Utopia, take those dragons, and then carry on from there. But what is this? This looks like it's gonna be a much tougher fight than I had planned on. Jacqueline the Barbarian is a monster. 10 attack, 3 defense, 1 spell power, 1 knowledge. I don't think I've seen this in any of the previous playthroughs. How she got so tough, I do not know. Roxana doesn't have an awful lot of defense. I believe she's got 3 attack, and she's got 3 attack, 2 defense. We are going to use this Mass Curse. We've only got 15 spell points to our name. That's going to be 1 Mass Curse. It's only going to last for a couple of turns, 2, 3 turns, and then it's going to dissipate. We're going to have 1 additional round of haste, which will help us. And really the choice here was, okay, do we haste the skeletons now so maybe they can get into that gap, into the moat where the wall is broken down, or do we try and mitigate the damage from 9 of the war trolls and 24 of the orc chiefs. Oh, excuse me. We have 24 orc chiefs. They have 35 orcs. Even though they're doing minimum damage though, yeah, this range damage is pretty hefty. We are already down to 332 skeletons. We have lost approximately 100 skeletons already in the first round of combat, and we are no closer to getting into our enemies. I have a choice where to go with the nomads. I'm going to try and deal with these war trolls up top. I'm going to make sure that I leave the gap in the fence, in the wall, open for the skeletons to go through. Down to 256 of the skeletons. We are feeling very much bad. I have the choice. Can I kill 6 to 9 of these orcs, or should I try and get some of the damage off onto the trolls? I opt not to attack the war trolls simply because I know that the war trolls are going to recoup their losses just in case you don't kill one full stack. And so for now, I'm trying to do my range damage against those orcs to the south, and I'm slowly whittling that stack down to 11 of the orcs. The skeletons with 185 though, they are mad, they are angry, and because they are hasted, they are 6 speed, they're going to get to go, and they are going to pretty much wipe out, completely those 9 war trolls. So it looks like we might be able to win this fight, but this losses, this was our big advantage. You kill a legion of peasants, you kill zounds of peasants, and you say to yourself, well, that's all the advantage I need. But all of a sudden our advantage feels like it's completely dissipated, and I'm thinking to myself, was this an error? Should I have gone, instead of this castle, should I gone for that dragon Utopia? I think that there's no doubt that with a couple hundred skeletons, you will absolutely defeat that dragon Utopia. And maybe the flying dragons can actually help you take a fight like this even better. That would probably be the better thing. Look at that, 379 skeletons lost. Oh my goodness. But what do we take in return? +2 on the attack, +1 attack, +1 defense from the spiked helm, ice cloak, elemental ring, snake ring. So our blesses with the Ankh, any recuperating spells for resurrect will be nice. We've got the plus on the morale, which is actually a big deal. The Metal of Courage is a wonderful pickup for us, and we don't really care about the Book of Summoning. We do pick up 2 levels. That's pretty good, but unfortunately we are 1 day away from walking into this town. This town, it looks like, does not have Cyclopes. I was really hoping for a wonderful resupply. We're going to be lucky with what we have. And folks, at this point I realized to myself, look, we did not get bone dragons. We only have up to vampires, and I feel like my Necromancer castle is absolutely threatened, and there's nothing I can do. And what is this? Oh my goodness, 55 orc chieftains coming from this yellow barbarian, who is, of course, Craghack. Of course, yeah. I mean, that just makes sense at this point. Of course, I mean, of course it's Craghack. And at this point, with only 71 skeletons, I do not see a path forward. The orc chieftains on their side are going to absolutely rain hell down upon us. We do not have any spell power so that we can mitigate any damage or even haste ourselves across the battlefield. Our morale is really not that great. I think we're back up to just maybe -1. And as soon as I take that hit from those ogre lords because I miscount my steps, you can tell Fixed Fox is instantly tilted. Ugh. And when you're tilted, what do? You depart in shame. So one of the best starts you could have ever hoped for, and I fumble the bag. Yeah, one of the best starts we could have ever hoped for. How many times did we try to make that worth our time and worthwhile? We tried so many times, and it just wasn't enough. I'm saying to myself, look, I'm gonna try and hold on to this, but we don't have a lot of gold generation. We just picked up this castle. Otherwise it was 1,000 gold per day from our main castle, and Castor again is bearing down on us. Could we stop Craghack from beating us? We got some good attack, we got some good defense. Let's see what other things we can do to mount a successful defense. And really, folks, there's just nothing. We can't even purchase a mage guild. If we survive this attack, we can't even get a mage guild just yet, so we can have full spell points on the next turn. And so right now I think that I'm you've heard me say the term throwing up on my shoes. Yeah, I'm definitely sick to my stomach. How about that? 45 of these orcs on the opponent's side is far too much for us to deal with. And it won't be long before the walls come tumbling down, and we're going to have to admit our defeat here. Yep, I think Fixed Fox automatically resolves that combat and says, all right, these things do happen. Let's load back in. But right now, now that I know that there is a dragon Utopia there, everything changes. Everything changes. The question about whether or not you go for the warlocks or if you go for the barbarians instantly changes. Yep, FixFox, I see you. We got through the Legion, we got through the Zounds of Peasants, we secured our starting area with 1 mine of each. We did everything right, and rather than go for the warlocks, we did go in the right direction, but we did not use our skeletons like we should have. 1 or 2 dragons from the dragon Utopia, that's always going to be really what the skeleton snowball stack can help us do. And so we have our heading, we have our strategy, we know exactly what to do, and so we're going to roll from that loss into the next playthrough. And so this is in fact 2 playthroughs back to back to back. Well, there's actually, I'll tell you right now, there's not a back-to-back-to-back. That would imply that there's 3 games. There's only 2. So this is going to be the second one, and we are going to get through this with a victory. So this ended up being a pretty tough map for me. I was not expecting this map to be so difficult when I started on. I hate to ruin it for you and maybe get rid of any tension. There's still going to be some major bumps in the road in this playthrough as well, but ultimately I can tell you that we are going to be able to overcome this. So we are going to start off with Ranlu as our starting hero here. Do note that we have really a pretty bad start, because in our tavern for our second and third hero, we are stuck between choosing between Roxana and Luna. And it's not necessarily that I hate either of those heroes or those classes, but right now we don't have the ranged damage to actually do anything nifty. And right here, if we did not pick up Wilfrey as our other possible hero, we would have had to concede in this instance, like we had done so many other times. So still, we're going to try and figure out a way that we can make this work. Will centaurs and orcs make this happen? Time will tell, but as you can tell, with only 1,000 gold coming in per day and no additional resources, we are in a bit of a rough spot. We've lost the advantage of having the advanced necromancy before we fight this fight. We have lost the advantage of being much quicker with our turn in moving forward, and so we're further behind than we were, and the only saving grace is that we roll a barbarian, sorceress, wizard. The sorceress I could absolutely do without, but being able to roll barbarians and 2 wizards, that's going to be plenty for us. We're just going to have to hit in turn a couple of times to generate the gold necessary to move forward into a better, brighter tomorrow. I'm positioning my troops near the Legion of Peasants. I know I'm going to want all my heroes to help my primary force bring to bear our forces, defeat guardians, and take all the mines that we possibly can. Things are about to get very busy very, very quickly, because as we've seen, there's an awful lot to be said about whoever gets to the middle of this scenario first being very much in charge in a major way. It's going to be 18 of the halflings. It's going to be 6 of these orcs. 4 of these orcs. Is this going to be a fight that we can win? It looks like the AI thinks that we're going to make this fight happen. Do we have nice terrain here? I submit to you that we really do not. We have 4 hexes long that we have to deal with here. There is no way we could really wall this off unless we were to try and bring the orcs up and try and be that 4th member there. It's just not going to happen. And so for now, let's just do as much ranged damage as we possibly can. Let's try and use that single stack of boar to make sure that nothing too bad happens there. Worth noting in the previous playthrough that FixFox made an error, and I had 5 stacks of creatures in my army at the time when I should have been getting some amount of skeletons raised by necromancy. If you have a full army, your necromancer hero will not raise skeletons. I made an error like that once before. As soon as this boar goes down, I'm going to be feeling much better about myself. Folks, there's an opportunity here, though. We surround the halflings, and now the peasants are going to want to focus on whatever free shooter they possibly can. My hope is at this point that these peasants are going to go to the south rather than to the north. I want them to leave me alone for as much as possible, as long as possible. But do note that I am trying to really bring down the peasant stack sizes of the top 3 units, and the 2 bottom stacks of peasants, those are going straight for the orcs. They're going for the orcs. And so my hope is that I'm just gonna once again split these forces and play this game of only fighting half of the army at a time. So far so good. I don't want to take many losses with those 20 peasants. Even 20 peasants can do a little bit of damage if you let them. And so we're going to bring that down to 5, call it a day. And at this point, I say to myself, okay, let's cover up the halflings. The peasants should respond by going towards the open shooter that they can get, and that'll buy me plenty of time to let my halflings have all the shots that they need, folks. It worked out perfectly. And if we can get these orcs to take an absolute beating, then that's just going to give us more time. And oh, maybe if they survive for one additional bit of damage, then both peasants are going to have to commit, and they do. One orc is left, and that's going to draw the ire of 52 peasants, folks, with only 43 peasants to go. I think that you can tell, I can tell, the writing is on the wall. This was not as clean of a start as the first playthrough was. We did lose the 4 orcs, and we only pick up 50 skeletons this time instead of 100, but we do grab the advanced necromancy there. We're absolutely going to take the ballistics here. We've seen that the skeletons are very, very necessary for our plans, and it's going to be important for us to do anything we can to make sure that they are safe and that they are able to have fun storming the castle. And so just like in the Princess Bride, if you're going to have fun storming the castle, you better have a way in, and not everybody can have a miracle worker or a big giant named Fezzik. Anyway, I do digress. We are fighting this fight. We're going out of our way a little bit because, number one, there's treasure, and number two, there's also some opportunity for crystal, which, you know, one of each mine is wonderful. I'm hoping to get the expert necromancy. If I can get an additional 10% on our skeleton return for the Legion, that'll be fantastic. Note again that these 50 skeletons are going to be able to kill one full stack of these goblins. I'm just trying to mitigate losses, not if but when they do eventually get hit. There goes one full stack of goblins goes down. 6 skeletons perish there, and we're gonna get out of this fight pretty easily, like so. 20 skeletons return, and do we get it? We do not, but we already talked about the diplomacy and how much I like that flexibility. That's proven to be very important. Note that we're not even going out of the way one square in order to pick up the crystal mine or to pick up the ore. We have 4 heroes in a very, very tight space here. Let's let some of the other heroes who aren't very important, let's let them do some stuff. I'm trying to figure out what the best army composition here. We've already seen how bad the morale has been. Do we make it even worse by bringing in sprites? In this case, we've decided not to. Is anybody gonna go pick up that ore mine? Anybody? No? All right. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, but I think that that would have been a good decision a moment ago. Plus 2 ore per day. That was 2 ore that we cost ourselves. We're gonna call that a big ol' whoops. No big whoop, dog. Okay. All right. You know what? Clearly this is not an easy fight until once again we do see that we have the terrain. So we're gonna have the top 2 stacks of peasants are gonna have to go south to go all the way around. And folks, I feel bad sometimes. I tell you if I'm doing something that is not kosher, right? If I'm doing a tactic that will only ever work against the AI and not against the player, this is one of those times where I feel kind of dirty about doing this. We're going to do the swinging gate maneuver, where knowing that the peasants and the AI are going to want to just charge towards whatever open gap they can, we're going to position the boars so that, as you can see, there's only now the gap through the northern territory, and so the peasants who just spent 2 turns going south are now going to travel back north. Yep. Just like that. And so peasants are discombobulated, they're stepping on each other, and we're just going to open this up back and forth, stepping the skeletons up. The poor morale kind of put me in a little bit of a bind there, not quite the way I wanted to do it, but there we are again. And now with the peasants committing so far up to the north, we just have to make a couple of adjustments here. Vix Fox, what are you doing? Are you sure you want them to come up one more step? It's not too late. It's too late. You would have had to have used that one skeleton to just kind of plug the gap there. But even so, I am so confident in my strategy that letting the peasants get this close seems just fine for me. So that might be something that the FHeroes2 team can look at in the future, whether or not creatures in this instance, is it best for them to do what they're doing, or should they just try and charge wherever they can? Folks, yeah, the peasants would have been much better off trying to go through the boars rather than go all the way around the terrain and through them. But we've met one of our goals where we were able to separate these forces. The skeletons are going to attack without any fear of retaliation. And let's see if we can do it yet again, where we're able to get these peasants split off. No guarantees one way or the other, and it looks like we've done it. So we're just going to end up skipping a couple of times, waiting for the peasants to get just a little bit closer. Whenever there's a, I don't know, whenever there's a story where the big bad evil guy is defeated by the power of friendship, I know it's a tired old trope, but if those peasants had just stuck together a little bit more, they would have been in a way better spot. I cannot lie. So here Fixed Fox is noting, look, I got about 200 skeletons less than I had on the previous playthrough, but what I lack in skeleton power, I make up for in having a better strategy. And so the better strategy is going to be get dragons as soon as possible, continue to get your forces into the middle of the map and take some of those free troops, and then see where that'll land you. It's not a bad start. It's just not the start I wished for. Although it is nice to see some additional peasants that we can liberate their calcium from. I'm sure that they want to join our army. It just comes down to, will they let us take them in? Just remember, folks, if you're cold outside, then your pets are too. So remember to bring your peasants inside so that way they don't freeze. Okay. Peasants surrounded by your forces. I don't care. I'm gonna fight this fight. It's only one boar, Fixed Fox. It is only one single boar. Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's only one boar, but I don't know how important these boars are going to be. We just saw where Fixed Fox was so confident with 400 plus skeletons in the previous playthrough, and we found a way to lose that. Maybe one boar is going to be the difference between a win and a loss. We're picking up this treasure chest for the experience. We do want to get the skeletons for the +1 on the sulfur as well. And worth noting, I did really decide whether or not I needed to go pick up that disrupting ray at the level 2 shrine to our immediate south of this position, and I ultimately decided not to. Disrupting ray is a fantastic spell. It's a wonderful spell, but even that little bit of movement points out of our way felt like just too much. So I did not love that decision. I decided not to pull the trigger on that. It's worth noting that the skeletons are now using the power of friendship. Hey, it's working out so good for them, and they are going to be better off because of it. Unfortunately, when you're just creeping closer to your enemy and halflings are bombarding you from afar, it's a good idea to maybe get snappy with this before your whole forces are defeated. I don't know. Once again, you've heard me say it before, I'll say it again. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, but I will tell you that if you don't do things the way that I would recommend, you are going to find yourself dead very, very quick. And then whatever decisions you wanted to make in life, it's over. Okay, picking up the Alchemist Lab, picking up the Sulfur, picking up the Watchtower. So that's going to be 12 additional orcs. Those are going to fit into our army fairly nicely. And again, using the secondary heroes to make everything nice and snappy. And at this point, I actually used Wilfrey to pick up this treasure chest. I was hoping it wasn't going to be a big opportunity for experience, because I'm really thinking to myself, okay, if I'm going to need dragons, I'm definitely going to need to make sure that I have gold and sulfur. We got the sulfur handled, great. Let's make sure that we don't regret not having additional forces for us. The estates here at this witch's hut is a really nice pickup. I do try and get, I think 3 out of our current 4 or 5 heroes end up picking that up for some length of time, and we're going to find out later that it's going to help the margins very, very much so. It ends up being pretty close whether or not we're able to get enough forces to survive the upcoming onslaught. In the meantime, though, whatever extra goodies we can find in the center of the map here, we're going to take. Here's a question for you, though. Do we invest, knowing that we have nomads potentially that we can buy in a tent, and also knowing that we have a Dragon Utopia not too far off, do you purchase the nomads when it might cost you a dragon later? That is something that I ultimately end up sort of wrestling with. You're going to have to wait and see what decision I make there. We grab Myra. She just takes the bulk of the army. I figured that the ranged creatures would run, and that actually worked out really nice for me, because then my main hero, Ranlu, does have the faster troops. He's got average speed troops instead of the 2-speed creatures in that instance. We're going to want to go through those rogues, because rogues are just free skeletons. We do get the orcs upgraded into orc chieftains. I forget that there's one more orc tower, like immediately to Aragon's eastern position there. It would be so easy for him to just go out of his way and grab that really quickly, and he forgets. But I don't think that the enemy is going to pick that up at some point. We saw in the previous playthrough that even secondary heroes had 55 orc chieftains at one point or another. And really, there's the orc towers littered across this map. We're going to find out that trolls and troll bridges are very useful. The map maker really wanted to make sure that whether you went for warlocks or whether you went for barbarians, that it was going to be a good decision. And it turns out later that whether we had gone for barbarians or whether we had gone for warlocks, we were still going to have a fight on our hands after all was said and done. There is no correct choice. There's just good, bad, or better depending on what your circumstances. And rather than go through the warlocks and then try to build up into dragons through their means and capacity, we're just going to go for the barbarians and go for their dragons. Hey, if they've got dragons this early combined with their barbarian might anyway, maybe that just is the factually better choice. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Which enemy would you prefer to go after first? The warlocks to the west or the barbarians to the east? This time we're not going through the middle of the map to go around like we did this last time. We're kind of going through this area right to the south of this little town here. The towns are different from playthrough to playthrough. There's a lot of things that are left up to chance and randomness here in this map. And which towns spawn in the center, that is one of those decisions. It's going to be a continual theme where we talk about how bad our morale is. Right now, it doesn't really matter, simply because the skeletons are the power stack, but it's going to matter an awful lot later. Folks, I take one look at this playthrough and I think to myself, look, the boars are going to get in there in one turn. The skeletons are going to get there in 2 turns. There's no point in me fighting this fight. I'll just accept my losses. I lose a net of 7 skeletons there. We pick up this extra 250 gold here from this little town. Not too bad, not too bad. And we're about to find out that we get a wonderful advantage here. Paralyze from this Shrine of the Third Circle. This Paralyze is a game-changing sort of spell. Of course, whether it is a blind or a paralyze, in a lot of ways it's a very similar effect because you're able to disable huge stacks of enemies, and knowing that we're going up against barbarians very, very quickly, that's a pretty unique opportunity. If they don't have a dispel, if they don't have a cure, then we're going to be coming out ahead very, very much, whereas they're going to be lagging behind. Maybe we can shut down a huge stack of orc chieftains. Maybe we can shut down a huge stack of trolls or ogre lords or who even knows what. But also, because Paralyze gives you the opportunity to attack without being retaliated against, there's some additional use cases, and we're going to enjoy that pretty much. Luna's going to move on because there's additional heroes that are going to grab that wagon. Statesman's Quill, if I had known that was going to come, I probably wouldn't have taken the diplomacy, but all the same, you never know. Man, the longer I play Heroes of Might and Magic 2, the more I think the diplomacy gets slept on. Truly, I do. Ranlu needs to get full spell points. That was about an extra 20-30 spell points. We see a hero off in the distance. Who it is, what they want, I don't know, but I have to assume the very, very worst of their intentions. We're going to have 12 of the Orc Chieftains. We're going to have about 4 boars. There's going to be 18 of the halflings and 302 of the skeletons. I'm saying to myself, look, I'd like to fight that fight if it's a free opportunity for easy experience, but we know what the priority is. We've already failed once. Let's go and get the dragons. So the Dragon Utopia is very much next. We're going to get one more instance of these orc chieftains, and really, even if I don't end up using these orc chieftains at this point, I've been able to avoid having to fight 26 orcs or orc chieftains from enemies in a very near future. So even if we don't end up using them very effectively, taking troops away from the enemy can't be a bad thing in this case. Myra's taking the troops from Wilfrey. We're going to hopefully get one more resupply. I'm trying to keep my forces a little bit back because I don't know if an enemy is going to shoot forward past my main hero and take out 1 or 2 of my secondary heroes. I don't have 5,000 gold to just simply replace these courier type heroes, and so I need to keep them very, very safe. Folks, it is day 7 and we have Dragon City. It is off limits to mere humans. Do you wish to violate this rule and fight them? I'll tell you what, I sure do. This is an instance though where I see Thundax and he looks so easy to pick off, and I say, oh, I could fight him right now if I wanted to, but I say no. Nope, I have already seen what happens if I'm a little bit too cavalier with my forces. Let's stick to the win conditions, and then that way we can finally put this scenario behind us. We're going to keep the skeletons at the very bottom, because I figure that the two range creatures are going to take more attention than the boars were, and I want the skeletons to be very, very close to any dragon that comes near them. Dragons can fly, I'm sure, half a mile high in the air. These skeletons with their little scimitar, they can't possibly attack them. They have to make sure that the dragons land. If you've ever tried to swat a fly that's been annoying you all day long, you probably have learned for yourself that it's usually best to try and let the fly land before you deal with it. Folks, black dragons get their shot, we retaliate and wipe them off the face of the map, and then these red dragons are very cheeky and they get the good morale to give them an additional attack there. This haste, I just figure that the orc chieftains are going to get covered up. If I want to get full damage off with them, I might as well. The paralyze isn't going to help me. I've got 60 spell points. I don't think it really matters, but just try to get some damage off where I can. We are down to 229 of the skeletons, losing about 12 to 19 every time they are attacked by one of these green dragons. We're going to get out of this fight, but are we going to have enough firepower left at the end of this? That's going to be the question. Note that the terrain is really bad for these 2 hex creatures with the boars. If you ever needed more reason to believe that gargoyles are superior to the boars, look at this fight, because not only are they ground-based troops and not being able to fly really does hamper the boars, but also being 2 hexes, they're good for blocking their halflings and some other shooters, as we've seen already with the terrain, but they are kind of geared differently. They really are. You know, boars are a good creature. They can go and deal with enemies who are ranged because they get down the battlefield so quickly, and then otherwise they're just kind of there for defense. There's not so many troops that are very flexible like that as the boars are, and we'll chalk that up to their high speed, but ultimately I'm still going to give the nod to the gargoyle for being the better tier 2 unit because they fly with the same speed, and really being only 1 hex instead of 2 like the boars are, that does give the gargoyle a distinct advantage. Folks, just in case the enemy attacks us, knowing that we've had some issues in the past there with that, then we're going to combine all these forces and we're going to try and make sure that we don't have any issues with Ranlu staying alive, just like the Bee Gees said, staying alive. I would like to pick up that halfling hull before an enemy does. Once again, just keeping troops away from enemies. But given that it's day 7, really, we're just hoping to walk out of here with 3 red dragons in just a moment. If I get too close, will Thundax attack us? Time will tell. It's nice to know that we've got our estates that is working for us. I mentioned earlier that there's going to be some pretty close margins with whether or not we're able to get what we need here. And this is going to be the time where we find out that, yep, it's a good thing that we gave that estates to a couple of different people. We are not going to get the opportunity to click on this hero, but I see already that the warlocks have hydras, and this is the beginning of week 3, and they already had 6 hydras there. What does that tell me? That tells me that they have multiple castles with hydras, not just 1, but multiple, and that is scary. We are able to reach Jacqueline. I'm expecting her to have, yet again, 10 attack. I'm looking for this Thieves Guild just to see if I can have some additional help there, but really, note, I only had 200 gold there left, so I was 200 gold away from not being able to purchase that final red dragon. The estates surely did help, so 100 gold here and there goes an awful long way. I'd like more information before I fight that fight with Jacqueline. If I ought not to fight, if I should just stay back and hold on to my Dragon Utopia and try and generate an advantage that way, then I'd like to know that in advance. Unfortunately, I don't have the wisdom that I would like. And if I can defeat Jacqueline, maybe this is the time. It's day 1. And so we're going to give it a try. It looks like it is going to be a pretty big fight here, though. Note that we've got 27 of the orcs at the top. We've got 10 of the ogre lords right below them. Oh, it's only 3 of the war trolls, though, and that absolutely helps out an awful lot. Oh, and look at this. Only 3 attack and 3 defense for Jacqueline. I can handle that. That won't be too big of a deal. Note that we also have the Paralyze. What is the biggest stack here? I actually decide in this instance that it's going to be the ogre lords. But given that there's 10, that's going to make sure that I feel comfortable letting the red dragons fly over the battlements and do some nice stuff, defeat some of these ranged creatures without any issues, and then go from there. I was waiting on this Paralyze because I wanted to make sure that the enemy had the opportunity to do a magic arrow or waste their turn, just in case. I would hate for them to just negate my Paralyze right here with a cure or a dispel. But I ultimately say to myself, well, I've waited long enough. Let's just hope that they don't have it, and they don't. Folks, very fortuitous circumstance here. The bottom wall section has been kicked out, and that's going to set up a really nice double hex flame breath attack from our red dragons. It is going to park them in the moat, but I'm not going to worry about that nearly so much as I'm going to concern myself with taking out 2 stacks of creatures. There goes the third. 94 skeletons is not an awful lot, but it's going to work out just fine. We do break the Paralyze, and I anticipate that we're going to envelop these enemies. Will I cast another Paralyze, or am I just going to let some nomads die? 4 nomads goes down. At this point, I guess that I'm not thinking about it, but this would have been a time where casting another Paralyze would have been worthwhile, because the AI is known to be able to surrender and do very, very well with that. We'd like to prevent them from doing that. That would have been the opportune time to use the Paralyze. So, very sad that I didn't. I'm happy it worked out in our favor. It looks like Jacqueline did not have artifacts this time, and so we will take that. We will take it. Back up to 93 of the skeletons, and this is a pretty functional castle. This is similar to what we had seen the previous time, and it's gonna be okay for us. We're happy with what we have here, but again, there's no pyramid for the Cyclopes, and not all of the dwellings are upgraded. A little bit sad about that, but we're gonna leave our nomads and our halflings back at home. This, of course, in an attempt to improve the morale, because dragons are very effective if you can let them be effective, but they are very ineffective if they just simply lose their turn because they hate hanging out with smelly hobbits. It makes sense to me. It really does. I get it. I get it. There's so many jokes I want to make right now, but I'm just not going to, because I'm worried that you'll think less of me if I tell you jokes about, I can't even tell you what the jokes would be about. Okay, let's get back to the game. So we've got a barbarian castle to the south. That's going to be Weed Patch. We have some enemies trying to cause us some harm. They're coming kind of to the north from our area of our newly claimed barbarian lands there. We do lose 1 scout to the orange player. And at this point, I realize, and I remember, like, okay, so if we do a really good job of defeating yellow, then who's going to defeat orange for us? The barbarians are supposed to more or less keep warlocks and late game factions in check. And if I've just supplanted that power in this land, then nobody is stopping the warlocks. And if nobody is stopping the warlocks, then the warlocks are going to run amok. And then I think to myself, okay, is this a scenario where I'm going to have to learn that I've upset the natural order, I've upset the balance, as it were, and I'm about to pay very much for my sins against nature? Possibly, and that is my fear at this point. I do still, though, even knowing that there might be major orange forces brewing in the west, I'm still going to want to secure this area of the map. I'm going to want to secure this continent. I'm going to want to make sure that I have a solid wall at my back, and then I will try and turn my attention back to the center of this map. And so we're going to head south. Thundax, I say to myself, look, he's too far away to take my castle. I've got time to run here and run back. If only I can defeat the defenders at Weed Patch. We will have to wait and see. It is going to be Myra that goes down here. And folks, for all those wonderful heroes that we had purchased once upon a time, we are now down to only 2 heroes. It's going to be Ranlu and Luna. These sprites are going to decide to take a pound of flesh out of the peasants, because why not? And then we're going to lose a longtime companion. But lest we forget, maybe the real treasure that we had was the halflings that we borrowed from that hero along the way. Losing 1 red dragon here feels absolutely unacceptable. This is a much tougher fight than the previous fights were. It's going to be 8 of the trolls. It's going to be 16 of the ogres. Not ogre lords, but ogres all the same. And once again, I'm going to hope that the enemy does not have a cure or a dispel. Phineas has 3 attack, 1 defense, 1 spell power, 1 knowledge. And so the Paralyze, it feels okay to me to just hope that there's no mage guild here with something nice for this barbarian foe. I don't think I'm going to lose a dragon if those ogres don't get woken up prematurely. And if the enemy hasn't done it so far, something tells me that they're just not going to at this point. Checking out the damage left on those trolls led me to lead the arrows from the 9 stack into the trolls. There was like 7 HP left. I just wanted to make sure I finished off 1 war troll wherever I could. We're going to attack the goblins, take out that big damage, and then once the orcs do half damage to the dragons, then we're going to be able to kill them on the retaliation. That is the plan. These wolves, it feels like the wolves have been fairly, I don't know, fairly lackluster when it comes to the enemy trying to use them. They've really used them defensively just to stand in front of their shooters. Do you really want to use 9 wolves, 8 wolves to stand in front of 1 troll? I submit to you that that might be a different sort of decision. You might want to rethink that one. But I mean, also, what else are they going to do? I suppose that there is always that. These ogres, I'm making the decision while I'm dealing with this 1 troll. Am I going to use these skeletons to attack them? And I say to myself, well, it's not really like it's a blind. There is some retaliations, half damage. There's no retaliation here on this Paralyze, so I might as well. I go for it. And really the question now in my mind is, hold on, wait a second. Do the enemy's turrets still work if the AI has its last unit paralyzed or unable to act? And the answer is yes, they do. Just in case you're wondering, you can't avoid turret damage unless you just completely wipe your enemy off the face of the planet like we did there. A blind or a paralyze will not do it. Folks, we are going to pick up the wisdom and we're going to pick up the advanced mysticism. That was about 2,600 experience from that fight, and nice to see that we got the shield, magic arrow, bloodlust. I'm very happy that we did not have to deal with a cure or a dispel. So in this case, we've got the upgraded stick hut still to go, we've got the upgraded adobe still to go, and the upgraded bridge. So this southern kingdom is struggling behind, but it looks like the AI starts off with many resource generating mines. I'm very happy for that. Very happy that we've got plenty of resource generating mines, because whether you get 3 marketplaces and 3 different castles, or if you get the marketplace on the adventure map, you're going to be able to use those resources to give you an advantage in some way, shape, or form. I would like to deal with Thundax because he's just sort of hanging around, just being a little bit of a thorn in my side. And because I can't reach him, I'm considering what day it is right now. Am I close enough to the beginning of a new week where I ought to just stick around, stay by? Will I have to defend this castle of Hilltop from Thundax? Is he going to make a really strange and odd decision? I don't actually know at this point if I've just taken Yellow's last castle. Whenever you do take an AI's final castle, they tend to make some decisions that you wouldn't expect, because the decisions are made out of desperation, because they have to get a castle within 7 days. And so I'm not sure at this point if Yellow has somewhere else that they can call home, and if they're going to go into panic mode or not. And so for that reason, I am going to get Ariel the Sorceress here. I'm going to want another hero that can explore for me as well at some point. For now, that's just going to make sure that if the enemy does want to attack me, if they do get stupid, then we do still have some recourse, and we can make sure that we don't have to retake that castle shortly thereafter. It's worth noting that even though we collect pretty much every obelisk in this playthrough, at no point am I thinking to myself, hey man, I could really use plus 12 attack or plus 12 defense or 6 and 6 of spell power knowledge, whatever the case is, whatever the ultimate artifact is. I dutifully pick up all of the obelisks that I see in this playthrough, but I don't really end up using them that much. Bit of a shame, because it's one of those advantages, and if you have an advantage, you might as well use it. Folks, I'm combining the orcs here so that way I can purchase 6 of these trolls. I don't want to spoil it for you, but these trolls are not meant for the world long. They should have stayed in their bridge while they had the chance. We pick up basic scouting here at this witch's hut. One of those times where it's not going to hurt my feelings ever if you say to yourself, look, FixFox, I wouldn't just step on a witch's hut with my main hero knowing that I can't give that secondary skill back. That witch is teaching me whatever she has there. I don't have any say in the matter. Maybe you don't want her to teach you leadership if you're a necromancer, for example. Maybe you don't want to be taught Eagle Eye if you're anybody ever. So I get it. If you wouldn't have stepped on it at that point, I decided to. Thundax is actually a pretty tough hero. 6 attack, 4 defense. But once we take out 44 of those orcs, I'm just not worried about the rest of these forces. He is a rebel without a cause. It's really hard to be a captain without a ship. It's hard to be a leader without a crew, and I think that there's not much else we can do here. Folks, these wolves are about to be... Yeah. Yep. My least favorite people in the world. Least favorite. I had an opportunity to actually step into that gap if I had thought about it. The reason why I didn't think about it is because I didn't anticipate the consequences of my red dragons losing their turn. It's at this point that I'm not yet completely done with having skeletons in my army, but when the time comes, I'm okay. Okay, sometimes FixFox lets his emotions get the better of him. This is the first instance of me being absolutely perturbed at losing troops I didn't have to. 6 trolls just being out the window. Yeah, not my favorite thing. As soon as I pick up that archery, though, that makes me think, okay, there's this troll bridge to my north there, and then there's this troll bridge over here. I say to myself, well, there's some dwarves. The dwarves are guarding crystal. Crystal is very useful for the barbarians, so that way I can get some cyclopes. Maybe I have some opportunities. We'll have to wait and see. I am using my hero Ariel here as a scout. I know I just purchased her, but I'm treating her as if she is very expendable. I wouldn't necessarily consider her extremely expendable. 2,500 gold, that's kind of a big deal, but all the same, she is, you gotta safely scout, and I don't want to put Ranlu in a position where he is overwhelmed and I have to use that diplomacy to retreat. So, all right, and have you noticed that we have opted pretty much not at all to build up our necromancy castle? Almost not at all have we built that up, and so that bodes very, very well for us as we're trying to consolidate power here in this barbarian wasteland. Any gold that we might have purchased and sent towards those necromancy forces, would they have played nice with the dragons and with these barbarian forces that we already have? Probably not anyway. All the same, though, at this point, I'm almost certain that we're going to lose our necromancy castle and have to come take that back in a couple of days, couple of weeks. And so if the enemy orange continues to be aggressive into our area, to our natural biome as they have been so far, what other choice do I have? It seems like the 8,600 gold that we currently have, if we had purchased even a couple of buildings, that would have all been gone, and we would not be looking at getting the pyramid here and now. We got plenty of wood, plenty of ore, but remember, you do need the crystal and the ore in order to get this building. The way I'm trading right now is specifically so that way I can have some availability for marketplaces, just in case later on I say to myself, look, I'd really like to dump all my gems and all my crystal and all my everything into marketplaces. If you trade unevenly, sometimes you can limit your opportunities at getting some mage guilds, and so I was trying to be purposeful there. Ultimately, it did work out. That shrine in the third circle with the cold ring, nice to have the AoE damaging spell. It's not my favorite, but it worked out okay. And folks, we do find another yellow castle. Now that is pretty interesting. That is interesting indeed, because now we know that yellow is not in panic mode, and that means that there's one more place that we can go to get some really nice barbarian troops. But first, it's a new week. That means that there's one new dragon here in the Dragon Utopia. Orange backs off. We feel pretty good about that. And you see that I'm going to hire Flint the Wizard here, so that way Flint can go back to those mines and take them back. Very interesting to note that Orange took the gems and they took the wood, but they left some of the other mines available. The FHeroes2 AI does a good job in prioritizing the resources that it needs. Sometimes you'll see that the AI just didn't pick up a pile of gold or pick up a pile of sulfur or whatever, just because, hey, their faction didn't really need it. Maybe the sorceresses will leave that behind. I wonder if in the future maybe some other courier type units, if they can do a better job of saying, well, I got nothing better to do, I might as well pick up some of this stuff. For now though, it's totally workable. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Just one thing I've noticed is that sometimes, even in the very, very late game, there's still gonna be piles about 2 days ride from the enemy's starting castle. Working as intended, I don't know. At this point, I'm planning on losing Ariel. She's done a good job. I'm just having her go to the different places there, the Shrine of the First Circle, Shrine of the Second Circle, so that way she can give me some more information. She's about to go down anyway. She's a lost force. You might as well do the Desperado move. Of course, the Desperado move, being famous in chess, if a piece is already in a spot where they are forked or pinned down in some way, shape, or form, and escape is impossible, then you might as well go out swinging and take down a piece of as great a value as you possibly can. You might be giving up your queen for a rook at that point, but it's sure better than doing nothing at all. So, Ariel's gonna go down. Whoops. Very sad. Very sad. And this detour to the Troll Bridge, ultimately, it's not gonna move the needle in a big way. It's another 6 trolls. It's another opportunity to supplement my troll force, especially since Ranlu did pick up the archery. Like, trolls can be really, really good. They can be. But I take solace in the fact that to the south there is the dwarves guarding those patches of crystal. And getting a second pyramid could go an awful long way for us. Not feeling a lot of pressure from yellow, not feeling a lot of pressure from orange. And at this point, I'm kind of saying to myself, wait a second, isn't this a 4-player map? What happened to the other player? Ah, and there they are. It was green that took us out a little bit ago. And so green is on the map, but do they have any amount of strength? That is kind of tough to say. We do lose that Necromancer town. That's going to be a bit of a loss, but you see how close they are to us. I don't want to use my primary hero with Ranlu and my main forces to chase after everybody. If I try and chase after every opportunity to do damage and to mark my territory, I think that it's not going to help drive me towards my win condition. And if I get distracted by troops that don't really require my attention, or enemies that I don't really care what they do with themselves, then being distracted, that's ultimately going to be a failure on my part. And so Croto at this point, sure, maybe I could get some experience from him, but I really want to make sure that I don't lose or have these 2 barbarian castles threatened. I want to make sure that an enemy doesn't show up on day 1 and maybe try and take that dragon Utopia or something like that. Just bigger priorities. And there's this sort of internal clock ticking in my mind where I say to myself, okay, we know that orange is the warlocks. We know that warlocks are a late game faction. Are we to the late game yet? Are the orange warlocks getting to the point where all of a sudden I'm going to start seeing dragons from them? And maybe they decide to pick up a barbarian or a knight hero instead of a warlock to lead their forces. Is my delaying this now going to cause me major issues in the future? That's really the question. We don't purchase all the ogres here. I assume that I'm never going to upgrade these ogres. If you upgrade ogres into ogre lords, it's incredibly costly. It's like 300 gold or something nuts. Because of course, whereas in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, for example, upgrading a creature from base level into their upgrade only costs the difference in the value of the troop. Here in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, it's double the difference in the value of the troop. And so, for example, the archer and the marksman for the castle faction for the knights, it's about 100 gold. It's 50 extra gold between an archer versus a ranger, but if you have to upgrade an archer into a ranger, the cost being double, it comes out to about 100 gold to upgrade each unit. And so these ogre lords, yeah, they're absolutely expensive in the same way that you wouldn't want to upgrade a giant into a titan. If I ever purchase a giant, I can almost guarantee you that it's going to stay a giant. And I don't know what that says about Titan and giant hierarchies, but I think it just indicates that there's some lack of social mobility and so maybe like the haves and the have-nots amongst the Cloud Castle folk, maybe that's a constant struggle. I couldn't possibly tell you here, but I would like to tell you that at some point I would very much be interested if anybody is wanting to make a really neat sort of fan fiction about all the heroes and Heroes of Might and Magic 1 and 2 and 3. I would definitely read that, just in case you're open to doing that. Yeah, sometimes we can't speculate on what the Cloud folk do, but sometimes, you know, sometimes we can figure out what the actual heroes were doing. Other than Lord Kilburn, I don't know much of the lore. Folks, worth noting that the red dragons have lost their turn again because of poor morale. And yet again, if left to their own devices, the wolves will attack the red dragons and I will lose 7 of the trolls. Yet again. And so you're going to see me use the war trolls to step in front to make sure that the wolves just simply can't do that. I don't know how the AI fought this fight, but the skeletons and the orc chieftains, they're not going to do as much damage as I would really like for them to do. And so there's still going to be some amount of wolves left over unless I kill them here now. I decide ultimately to do that. I think that the ranged damage that I had in the AI fought fight all went towards those 38 orcs. Why do you wait to use that now? I can't tell you, but I'm sure that the AI saved that spell with a wise purpose in mind. 26 additional skeletons. We're up to 144 skeletons, and folks, yellow player has been vanquished, and so currently Ranlu the Necromancer, level 12. Here we have got 18 of these orc chieftains, 5 of the red dragons is the big deal for us. We got the Paralyze spell, Blind, Bloodlust, a couple of other nice spells, and the 5 red dragons are backed up by the 144 of the skeletons. That is not the most amazing army you ever saw, but that is way better than anything we've had up to this point. And we've got a couple of heroes that are able and ready and willing to ferry troops to the front. And so we shall let them. Green, it looks like, has taken the northern territory of the Cracked Earth. And the question is now, do I send Ranlu up there to reclaim that? Or do I start to send Ranlu, again, across the map into some middle territory or into the west where the warlocks reside? There comes a point where if green is not that big and it's just Aragon, maybe I say, well, maybe 1 red dragon on Luna. Maybe that'll be enough. And I won't have to worry about devoting my massive force to this one enemy. Aragon here, he was just too tempting. Too tempting. And so I do believe that I purchased Natasha here. I do. And so Natasha is going to ferry the troops from the castle over to our main hero, Ranlu. It's going to be 10 Cyclopes have steadily accrued to this point. That's going to be a nice pickup for me. Happy for it. We're going to have some issues with army composition fairly quickly. I'm still waiting for the exceedingly funny moment. It's coming. Trust me, it is coming. And you're going to see FixFox absolutely lose his mind due to poor morale. But for now, I'm saying to myself, well, I've got 18 of these orc chieftains. I'm sure I can find a way to fit them into my army. And the problem is I just don't really have the room. When you got 5 dragons, you're devoting a full stack of your troops to the dragons. You're devoting a full stack to the skeletons. And I'll tell you, it's not until much, much later that I rethink the decision on whether or not skeletons need to be in my main army. But I do eventually evaluate that and decide that it's not worth my time. Let's upgrade these trolls. One very important thing here, 9 trolls upgraded for about, what, 1,000 gold? That is a really inexpensive upgrade. And what that means to me is that while you sometimes don't get ogres, because you don't want to miss out on ogre lords later, if you get trolls, plan on getting the upgraded bridge whenever you can, because it's going to be worth it to upgrade them. It's going to be a cheap enough upgrade with a reasonable enough advantage that you just ought to do it. You might as well. So, things to think about. By the way, yes, your ears do not deceive you. I sincerely apologize. My voice is gone. I'm supposed to stream tomorrow. I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't know if my voice is even going to hold out for the rest of this video, but we're going to do the best we can. And we're going to figure out what works best So this enemy orange player, not much, but yet again we see 6 hydras there, and so pretty soon we're going to realize that the hydra count has grown massively. It's not quite there yet, but soon, very, very soon, we're going to discover that we are going to have to be very crafty indeed to overcome 75 hit points worth of hydra for every single hydra that they have. I don't want to, again, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I get a little bit scared later on. And when that happens, I will let you know. Oh, you're a smart person. You probably don't need me to tell you when I'm scared. You're probably like, Fix Fox, don't worry, I got this. You don't need to tell me if something's good or bad. I just understand. Oh, and what's that? We did lose 9 war trolls because the gargoyles made me flame breath myself again? Huh. And so now at this point, I'm going to put the red dragons at the bottom of the stack and then the ogre lords right next to them. So that way, if the red dragons do flambe some friendly fire type of situations, then at that point, okay, it's going to be the ogre lords who are fairly hardy anyway. They will take the damage, not the delicate, delicate's maybe the wrong word, but not the very high value war trolls. We don't need to lose 9 war trolls every single time a gargoyle decides to breathe on my dragons. Let's see. Worth noting that we just saw a giant there, and that tells me an awful lot. As we pick up this Artesian Spring, folks, we're going to get up to 160 spell points. We did pick up the Skull Cap earlier on, so our blinds and our paralyzes are basically half damage. But when we see the giants out on the map, that is part of my internal clock ticking that tells me, hey, we need to figure out our titans soon to be upon us, and if they are, what do we need to do to mitigate those losses? I did not realize at this point something that is probably pretty obvious to you, the viewer. We started off as the red player with only 1 castle. I did not realize at this current juncture that, well, of course, then if you start off as the green player, you're not going to have 2 or 3 castles available to you. You're going to start off with 1 castle. And so we know that green started off as the wizards. There's going to be 1 wizard castle that currently has a cloud castle in it. And so the 1 wizard faction, it's not like there's 2 or 3. It's not like there's 2 or 3 towns and castles pumping out archmages and rocks and so on and so forth. And so I kind of overestimate the threat level there a little bit. But again, I see giants and I say to myself, I've had just quite enough of that. Heal. And so can I find green is maybe going to be the next question. We're going to have to wait for that for just one moment. Okay. Moving troops to the front. I gotta tell you, in this playthrough, I end up getting pretty quick with the way that I'm moving my troops around. Right now, there's still an awful lot of thinking that's going on. There's no guaranteed decisions right now. Some of my least favorite maps, and maybe not least favorite in the sense that I don't like them, but my least favorite in the sense that they put me outside of my comfort zone, are maps like Mountain King, for example. Mountain King is a great single player scenario in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, where you start off in the very center of the map surrounded by 4 enemies. If you're in the very center of the map, there's so many choices available to you about where you go and what you do. If you start off, as most maps have you do, in a corner or at an edge, it does provide some additional defense for you, because then you only have to worry about enemies coming from certain places, certain areas, but it also means that you have less decisions that you can make because there's only so many more places you can go, rather than being in the center of the map and having 360 degrees of places you can go. If you only have, say, 90 degrees worth of space to explore and travel, then your decision making can be a bit compromised, right? And so at this point, it feels like there's no clear-cut decision that is the very, very best to me. Where does my main primary force go? I mean, we could go immediately west, we could go through the west by that necromancy castle that we had already passed by. We could go straight for this warlock castle that we see orange has, just barely peeking out of the underbrush there in the unexplored territory. Really, the point is that as we're trying to figure this out, do we go back for those ragtag heroes that try to invade our land? Time will tell, but the choices sometimes are not as obvious as we would sometimes like it to be. And so we're just trying to minimize the things that the enemies can do to throw a wrench in our gears, or a wrench in our plans. So for now, we're going to make Natasha a big, tough, scary hero with 20 of the war trolls and one of the red dragons. She's actually going to be pretty fantastic, and she's going to help me make sure that no enemies get behind me. Nobody wants to explore, maybe take a castle. One of the more frustrating things that can happen to you is that you get very hyper focused and forget to take a step back and look at the big picture, and you miss things. And it's very embarrassing to say, but sometimes the things that I miss are so important as, hey, I've got a castle full of troops available to be purchased. I didn't purchase a single one of them, and a single hero from the enemy side walked up and walked right into my castle, and I basically gave them the castle and the troops for free without a fight, and now my day is ruined. That does happen, and when it happens, it feels bad in general. And so we just want to make sure that we are keeping those ragtag heroes out of our back line and just keeping everything safe. Folks, this is a big battle. I don't realize how big of a battle it is until we get into it. And there at the bottom is 33 of the halfling of the hydras. Oh my goodness, 33 hydras. What do you do? So obviously, because they cast the haste immediately, we're going to counteract that by doing the paralyze. We know for sure that these hydras are not going anywhere for this turn. If you cast haste first right off the bat, yeah, it might be the best spell for you, but if the enemy has the opportunity to negate that in some way, shape, or form, you're gonna have a real bad time. I'm not sure if I want to fight the minotaurs here or if I want to just take out all of the centaurs. I'm worried that I might lose a red dragon on a retaliation. Ultimately, I decide that, well, how about I kill the priority stack of Minotaur Kings, and then I'll kill the centaurs when they attack me, so I'll get them on the retaliation. That was my thought process there, and it ultimately worked out just fine. These griffins are going to stay alive annoyingly, just enough to make me have to deal with them in just a moment, and it's going to be the cure that comes out to give the hydras a second life. Well, that cannot be allowed to stand. There's 33 hydras that are currently just chilling. But look what we have here, folks. There is nothing but my forces and the hydras. I go into a defensive position for a second. I think, oh, I'll just shoot these enemies down from afar. For a second, I forgot that no. If you have Paralyze on, the enemy has no retaliation. You don't need to worry about taking any losses like that. And because hydras are 2 speed, then this hero is essentially going to be blind locked. Orange is not going to get the opportunity to retreat, to surrender, to cast spells, or do anything, because we are going to simply reapply the blind and the paralyze again and again and again and again. This is one of those times where if you're a Heroes of Might and Magic 2 purist and you feel like you don't like that I keep turn order on at the top of the battle screen, that way the Ogre Lords could just slide into the front position right in front of the hydras. Ultimately, I decided it's not going to matter. I'm just going to end up casting my blind or my paralyze 1 or 2 more times. Paralyze right now only being 4 cost, again, because we do have the skull cap. The skull cap just makes this strategy overpowered, too easy, and I'm happy for it. It's one of those times where with the skull cap, you don't usually think about how good of an artifact that is until a moment like this, where you definitely would not have had the spell points to fight this fight, but you turn a loss into a victory because of it. And folks, we did. We went from losing that fight into losing only 20 skeletons and coming out on top with that. We got the stealth shield, we got a couple of really nice artifacts. That feels good. And then I say to myself, wait, is there space to go to the north there? Like red, we had a big opening that led to our area. Is green to that little north? No, and it looks like it's too small of an area in the unexplored terrain. And so I say to myself, they couldn't be there. They got to be somewhere else. and so I do not investigate any further, and you will find that I will regret that very, very quickly. We're going to send Natasha up to the north. She's going to deal with Barak. I'm going to try and get him expelled from my lands, and it's going to be Zam that's just holding on for the moment. Orange is pushing out. And Rathmont. Rathmont. We've already defeated one enemy with all those Hydras. Was that the toughest enemy that they had? Or has Rathmont got a trick up his sleeve? He walked up to me so casually as if he was not scared of me. It looks like due to the auto battler that he should have been scared. If the auto battler says that I obliterate you, then I don't understand how the decision making is so poor there from the AI. You got all the math there in front of you. I didn't surprise you with a Paralyze or something. Oh well. These things do happen. Worth noting, by the way, in these castle assaults, the gargoyles wanted to attack my red dragon so that they would flambe the ogre lords. That did not happen because of the positioning of the catapult. Doesn't happen in non-siege combats, but it does happen here when there's a siege and there's a catapult. That is going to make the very bottom position a-okay for your dragons, your phoenixes, or your cyclopes, to make sure that you don't accidentally hit yourself when you're retaliating against some pesky flying 6-speed creatures. The 10 Minotaur Kings are going to get their chance to do some damage. What do they do with it? They kill 24 skeletons. At this point, the skeletons have been an evergreen source of joy. I've been just very joyful knowing that these skeletons, even though I may lose them, they take damage for me, they pump some damage out, they just do everything I ask them to do. And losing 57 doesn't feel great, but when you get 9 back every time, and more here and there, it feels a-okay. Folks, we are going to upgrade this Mage Guild into level 2. Come on, FixFox. I believe in you. I'm looking here to see if I need any spells. I'm saying, look, I don't really have a damaging spell. A Cold Ray or a Lightning Bolt would be awesome, and I do get the Lightning Bolt here. That feels good. The only issue there is that then it feels bad because I got the blind from a shrine somewhere on the map, and now I might have just given the enemies an opportunity to blind my forces. Don't love that, but we ultimately come out ahead by having that advantage where we might not have otherwise. I can currently reach Brock because I stop into the spring. I barely run out of movement points for it. I will just run up to him as much as I can. There is no choke point here where I can prevent him from going behind me. That's sad, but I'll accept that. And then green player, green player, green player. And this is when I realize, whoa, guys. Green player has to be up this little itty bitty landmass there. A little isthmus, perhaps, is what you might call it. I'm very sad for it because I was ready to bypass them, and well, they drew too much attention to themselves, and now they're gonna die. I don't make the rules. I just tell you how it is. 6 gargoyles remaining. We're gonna use the ranged creatures to try and pick off these single stacks wherever we can. I don't know if the enemy is going to want to do one more lightning bolt or something like that, but if they do, I just would prefer to not give them the chance. 1 magic arrow there, and that's going to make sure that there's no issues. 5 of the Orc Chieftains goes down, so be it. But Sandro, yeah, look at this. Sandro with giants, and I say to myself, is there something there? There's gotta be. 3 heroes don't just pop out of nowhere, and I don't think that there's many liths on this map. Recall that this map is not from the Price of Loyalty. It is from the base level games, and so that does mitigate some of the weirdness that the AI might do to surprise you, and that feels okay. We do pick up the second pyramid now in the most southerly Barbarian Castle. It was probably a week or 2 late. I probably could have and definitely should have gotten it a week or 2 earlier. I just got distracted by some other things. I didn't play optimally. These things do happen. We would like to hold on to this Warlock Castle. It's not likely because it's just in a forward position, and we have gone into the enemy's territory, and now we are kind of having to circle back and go towards green here. But ideally, we're going to hold on to it for as long as possible. It looks like 2 green heroes are going to put themselves right in harm's way, adding to the skeleton stacks. And then I see no reason why I ought not to chase green. If I can defeat them, then that's going to be one less way that the enemy can get into my backline and cause me issues. And again, we haven't seen Titans yet, but we've definitely seen Giants. And the internal clock says that the enemy has got to be just about there to the upgraded Cloud Castle. We are going to get a little bit of scouting here with Darlena. She did a great job at picking up that plus 1,000 gold from the gold mine there. And she got just a little bit of forewarning about what we can expect from Orange in the volcanic terrain there. These skeletons did not have a chance. Okay. Gwyneth, Dawn, and this is where I make the decision to push on to the Wizard's Castle. I say, look, even if I have to trade a castle here or there, let me, it's kind of like how I imagine antibodies work for the humans. The humans. I say the humans as if I'm not human. Sorry, this is how I have to tell you guys I'm not human. I'm an alien. No, it's the way that white blood cells work to eliminate disease within humans, and they just kind of envelop and then break down whatever might cause you some issues, and therefore your body's immune system fights off things that just shouldn't be there and make you sick. In this case, we're ignoring some of the big things that we can't really handle right now, just so we can envelop the little areas in the map, and slowly, piece by piece, play by play, we are taking away some of the chances that the AI has to do something really nice for us, folks. It's going to be day 7. We're going to have a glorious victory here. Pick up the expert necromancy, and will that be the end of green? It will be the end of green. They do have a regular cloud castle. We are immediately going to upgrade that into Titans, and then I have the decision, who do I leave behind? Remember, we do have the archery skill, and so I would like to keep the war trolls if at all possible. And ultimately we do that. We're going to leave the Ogre Lords behind. We're going to keep the 10 Cyclopes because of course we are. At this point, I'm going to keep the 142 of the skeletons. And folks, something terrible has just happened. Please note that we have barbarians in the army, we have necromancers in the army, we have wizards in the army, and we now have warlocks in the army. The skeletons count for -2 morale. Something bad is about to happen. Something absolutely horrible is about to happen, and it's actually hilarious. I hope I can do it justice because, again, you're a smart purveyor of the Heroes of Might and Magic series. You understand a bad situation when you see one. All the same, a little bit of theatrics can help us enjoy this game because there's tactics and strategy that matter so much for Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and the tactics and the strategy, that's probably the reason why I keep coming back to Heroes of Might and Magic 2 mostly. But also, I'm an adventurer, and I love the stories that are told in Heroes of Might and Magic 2, and without those stories, I think that you're missing a major part of what makes the game so wonderful. Not too long ago, I asked the question on YouTube. I had a wonderful response. I think about 250 people so far have responded to the poll. And my question is, why do you play Heroes of Might and Magic? And the options were the adventure, the gameplay, the stories, or something else. And I think it was about 5% of people said it was something else. Another 5% said, well, it's the stories. A large part of the people said it is because of the tactics and the strategy and the scheming. But over 50% of all the people who responded, 50% of 250 people said that the adventure is the reason that brings them back to the game. And many people clarified in the comment section and said, well, when I say that, I mean because it's sort of like a fantasy wonderland, and I feel better, or I feel different. I feel good because I'm enjoying the world of Enroth, and I'm enjoying the Heroes of Might and Magic. And I must say that I'm glad I asked the question, because it's so nice to know that I agree with many wonderful people out there. The adventure and the storytelling, it all goes hand in hand. It really does. So hopefully you're enjoying this, because man, I sure do. I sure do. Oh, we pick up Rathmont here. He's just going to clean up some of these free resource generating opportunities for us. And once he's done with that, he's probably going to bring us some troops to the front, which feels a-okay to me as well. So now we've dealt with one more enemy. There's just us, and there's orange. 2 players left. Any concerns? Is it possible that we can lose this scenario? Now, remember that these barbarians, they started off with, it looks like, 3 barbarian castles and then 2 towns sort of situated in the very center of the map. What do the warlocks have? Do the warlocks, as the late game faction, have less castles? Do they have more? Is it a mirror matchup for the orange and the yellow players? Time will tell, but it should be pretty obvious, as we've already seen some enemies with dragons, that as soon as the enemy learns that they have to use their might in order to overwhelm us with dragons, we are officially cooked thoroughly. And I just have to hope we can survive. I mentioned earlier that the obelisks, that I dutifully picked them up, but I don't really look for the ultimate artifact. Right about here, we know where the ultimate artifact is. We knew a while ago there is a warlock castle that is on the puzzle map. And so we do know that it is currently in terrain that we have never explored. Worth noting that FixFox needs to go to the eye doctor. I cannot tell if there is a hole dug in the volcanic terrain. My eyes slide right past it from one instance to the other, and so I just completely miss it. So if you happen to see that the enemy dug up the ultimate artifact, you keep an eye out for me and let me know, because I sure didn't, or don't. Uh-oh, spoilers? Maybe? Or did I know that I would accidentally spoil something and I pretended like I was spoiling something when I really didn't? Intrigue, theater, dramatics. Folks, a glorious victory. I continue to fight these fights. Again, probably not necessary to fight this fight, but it's gonna be one of the more frustrating fights I've ever seen. So please note, the Titan has just lost their turn. The Red Dragon has just lost their turn. Oh, but the Red Dragon did take their turn in retaliating against that enemy, and we did toast our own Titans. Okay. Alrighty. Well, good thing Titans have 300 HP, because there's no way we're going to lose a Titan in this fight, right? Right? Aragon the Barbarian, he's not amazing, but he's okay. 14 of these Mintar Kings. We're killing about 7 with 140 of our skeletons. Griffins are getting a good instance of morale. Oh look, the Titans lost their turn again. This can't possibly be bad. Oh wait, we just hit ourselves again with the Red Dragons. I hope you felt the frustration as the mouse just skittered across the screen there. I'm so sorry, but the Red Dragons lose their turn again. The Titans and the Dragons both lose turn 1 and turn 2 in this fight, and yet somehow we walk away with 1 less Titan because the Red Dragons still retaliated and hurt myself. I couldn't have stopped that if I wanted to. Ugh. It's embarrassing. And I just realized it. Oh, you are kidding me. And this is where I decided that skeletons are just not worth it. The Titans did not get a turn in that fight. Insane. Insane. So you bet your bottom dollar that at this point FixFox is saying, okay, you know what, skeletons, it's been real, it's been fun, but I'm not keeping you around for much longer at all. And pretty soon we're going to see how sure I am of that decision. But there's something pretty nifty on the horizon. It's currently day 6, and what will the new week bring? Time will tell. Are we about to hit Month of the Plague or something else? Tough to say. All right, but here's that change that we're going to make. Skeletons, you're gone, and immediately we go from treasonous morale down to only -1. Bad morale, that I can deal with. Treasonous morale, clearly, when my power stack of dragons and titans are mired in the muck of despair, then we have to do something. And so the skeletons, you gotta go. 140 skeletons, it's not a bad stack. They've been fantastic for us, but at this point, you are just not worth it. And I bid you adieu. And so, our forces are rattling on through. I'm trying to get these forces from the very far back from the barbarian forces up to the front, but every time I try to convince myself to purchase these 21 ogre lords or any of these other forces, these orc chieftains for example, I say to myself, yeah, but at this point am I actually going to bring them into my army? And the answer is no. So I just upgraded the stick hut there, and then mid thought realized, yeah, but orc chieftains are not going to make it into this final army. What's the point in purchasing them? Maybe save your gold for something else. Maybe I need to upgrade red dragons into black dragons. Maybe I need to purchase 40 hydras. I don't know, but I end up saving the gold in case there's some more pressing feature quickly on the horizon. We've got Natasha staying steady there in the Dragon Utopia, because it is day 7, and folks, it is a new week. Oh, and look at that, it is week of the Titan. Titan growth is up by +5, and so instantly I know what my strategy is. This here wizard castle does not have a cloud castle, it does not have titans in there, but I do have one wizard castle that does. And so we're gonna first purchase the dragon because I want to make sure I can get this dragon up to the front. We're gonna have to trade a lot of resources in order to get what we need to pick up those titans, but very, very quickly we're gonna be bringing to bear over 10 titans in our primary forces with Ranlu. If you didn't think that the scenario was over before, I can tell you it's just about over now. All the same, the enemy does continue to put up a fairly good fight. They acquit themselves fairly nicely, but when all of a sudden I get an extra 5 titans, when now I'm bringing up 8 titans to add to the 2 that's currently in my stack. If I was far behind before, I'm definitely not far behind now. Maybe the unsung hero of this scenario is my Necromancer castle that never got upgraded but provided me 1,000 gold per day in order to get into dragons and titans. That's probably it's probably not a bad way of looking at it. Oh no, my voice is going. It's almost gone. Come on, Fix Fox. Just gotta make it through the end. We are close. We are getting fairly close to the end of this scenario, folks. So I'm gonna continue just power through this. I sincerely apologize. I think that in the last hour I have definitely gotten worse. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream tomorrow. We're going to have to wait and find out. Okay. And so, worth noting, Ranlu does have the 6 attack and the 5 defense, and so he does have some stats to back up these dragons. He does have some stats to back up these titans. I've tried to make sure that my forces all can kind of congregate in the middle and I can do a nice clean handoff, but also not hand off in a way where the enemies might run past Ranlu and again attack those other heroes. I really want to keep the enemies in front of me as much as possible. That little misfiring brain cell for orange right there, yeah, that's the exact guy that I don't want him to do that. I want to be able to defeat them before, but now we do have the 140 skeletons there on Luna. Luna's going to be a pretty okay force for me taking care of business. Folks, this enemy is fairly tough. They've got 3 of the black dragons. They've got 1 of the red dragons. They are focusing in on those war trolls, and they're only killing about 4 at a time. That's what you get when you have a sorceress leading your forces. We're going to do the dispel. We're going to skip on the war trolls so that way the Cyclops can do their damage on the black dragons. We get the absolute bare minimum low end of damage there, but we still are able to at least make sure that the trolls don't feel like we're just leaving them out in the cold. Either way, whether we attack the Minotaur Kings or the Black Dragons, the enemy is going to have the opportunity to use one of their 6-speed creatures. They ended up using it in that way. Again, we're seeing bad morale, but it's not the worst I've ever seen. Not when it's treasonous. Bad morale happens. Treasonous morale, very, very much more than I wanted to deal with. And rather than have Ranlu go and fight Phineas, now we're going to use our secondary troops. Now we're going to see the value from Luna and Natasha, and they're going to take care of making sure that everything's fine on the home front while Ranlu can go in and do some major damage. By the way, worth noting, I really like in the Cracked Earth the green palm trees that are surrounding the barbarian castles. They really do a good job in trying to make the castles look like there's something of an oasis amidst a place of no vegetation and just dry and not so very pretty. The map maker did a good job of trying to add some variety to the map. This is a tile set of dirt and cracked earth and volcanic terrain. There's no grass on this map at all, which actually does impact the way that you might perceive this map. Partially because color matters, and partially because you're not hearing grass theme. You know, you're hearing different sounds other than what you might be expecting. But it does, the ambiance does matter an awful lot in this sort of map's enjoyment. I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine that if the terrain was something just ugly, and if it was just a very ugly map, I probably wouldn't have come back to really try and conquer this map. Making a beautiful map means that players are going to feel more accomplished when they are able to ultimately solve the puzzle and get to the point where they can conquer the map. At this point, we're conquering the map, and that feels great. But I might not have stuck with it if I didn't think that the map rose to that level of prominence, and I'm happy to say that I think it does. We are going to purchase the level 3 and level 4 mage guild here today and tomorrow. We're not going to go for green dragons or anything like that. I'm going to assume that there's 1 or 2 towers out there. We've already seen black dragons at least once, and so we're going to assume that there's already dragons out there. Once we can get up to a black tower, then we're going to upgrade the red dragons to black. We don't need to mess around with trying to purchase green dragons from the start. I told you I'd pick up the level 4 mage guild, and I have. Teleport, I actually really like the teleport spell here. Every time I see teleport with warlocks, it makes me feel like, and I don't know if it's true, but it makes me feel like, as we see the barbarian oasis here in just a moment, it makes me feel like the spells in mage guilds are more likely to appear for some factions than they are for others. And I've heard conflicting data on that. Some people say that no, anybody can get any spell, and some people tell me no, some factions are definitely more likely to get certain spells than others. Like there's some sort of preset predisposition to, for example, I've always tended to notice that the Necromancers are more likely to pick up the Earthquake spell. And it feels like, I'm just saying, maybe this is wrong, but it feels like that might be because, maybe, it's because the Necromancers are sort of in an antithesis to the Knights. Knights, of course, have the faction special building of having fortifications, and so it would make sense that, hey, you have Crusaders that can do double damage to me, why don't I have the Earthquake spell that can tear down your massive defender's bonus when attacking a castle? True or not, I couldn't tell you, but these are the things that I think about sometimes. Folks, it is a new month. It is month of the plague. That is actually going to suit us very, very fine. We are not to the point anymore that we want to bring troops to the front. Like, we're not going to really rely on these forces that are back here. And what this really means is that the enemy is not going to be able to resupply their forces before we are able to take their castles. We have a window of 7 days where we're not going to have to deal with any more dragons. Whatever forces the enemy has, that's what they have to deal with. And of course, my standing forces are substantial, and so we just need to lean on our enemies with our weighted advantage, and we need to let them know that, hey, it's time. It's time to call it a day. Go home, people. Go home to your families. Let them know that you love them. It's very important. The other day in a comment section for one of the videos, I don't want to say which video because I don't want people to go like track him down and give the guy grief, but somebody said something to the effect of like, go touch grass, and I thought it was really funny. It was the first time anybody's ever told me to go touch grass. I know I play a lot of Heroes of Might and Magic 2. I know that I really enjoy this as a hobby, but I work a full-time job with 40 hours a week, and I spend a lot of time with my family, and I've mentioned that I'm slowing down on making videos for Heroes of Might and Magic, in large part because during the winter here, there's less to do outside, but as the weather gets warmer and when there's sunshine outside, yeah, you better believe I want to spend time outside with my family. And so the weather's getting nice. I'm going to slow down on videos. I'm going to have one major big push left, and I'll tell you what that is in just a moment, but for the most part, I have a tremendous amount of balance, I think. Well, okay, we could all work on balance. But after somebody tells me to touch grass, I'm instantly required to double check to just make sure that, yes, indeed, I do have some semblance of balance. Whether it's true or not, you're going to have to let me know. Yeah, I do play a lot of heroes, but for the most part, I think I still take care of business, and there's a lot of other hobbies out there that are much worse for people than playing Heroes of Might and Magic. As far as hobbies go that take a lot of time and energy, this one is no cost. I mean, it costs what, $250 or $2 when it's on sale from Good Old Games, and then the FHeroes2 version is literally free Heroes 2, you know, so the cost is minimal. And then just the investment with time. I mean, tell you what, time is a valuable thing, and we shouldn't pretend like it's not, because it absolutely is, but I'd be lying if I said that I was highly efficient with every moment of my time in my life. It comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. Folks, we just picked up the red dragons into black dragons. Now, when we attack enemies, the black dragons should hopefully be able to avoid getting accosted by some gargoyles. Hopefully that will prevent that from being an issue in the very, very near future. One thing I mentioned, I said that there's going to be one big push coming up in a little while. I've made no secret about it that I've been delving into Olden Era, and I know that there's still much to be done with that. I believe that they are still planning on releasing the game for early access in Q2 of 2025, and I think that the most recent announcement that would be summer, so I'm guessing it's going to be probably July is when they do release it. I hope that if they need more time, that they don't release something bad just to try and meet a deadline. What do they say? A rushed game is forever bad. A delayed game can eventually be good. I'd like to think that hopefully people will not care about money and profits and shareholders and stuff. They'll just try and make great games. That's always my hope. But we will see. But so when Olden Era for Heroes of Might and Magic is released, it is my intention on taking pretty much a full week of work off, so that way I can enjoy the game. Personally, I want to enjoy the game. I've built up a meaningful amount of vacation time. I have other vacation ideas and stuff planned with my family, my loved ones. My work is stressful enough that nobody looks at me sideways and says, wow, did you really need a week off to just decompress and relax? And the answer to that is yes. There was once a time in my life where I used to donate time without pay or without compensation. I don't do that anymore. You're not a good person just because you are trying to be noble and donate time. Anyway, and so I will take my time, and the way I'm going to spend the time is I'm going to do Olden Era for 1 week, and I'm going to hit it pretty hard, and I'm just going to enjoy playing that. And I suppose we could stream that on Twitch. I suppose we could make videos about, you know, what we find, and in fact I probably will. That's pretty much in the plans. That's what we'll do. So if you're looking forward to Olden Era, just know that that is my intention on being there for it from the very, very beginning. I wish I was involved in the beta testing that they have going on right now, where they're trying to test out their networks and things like that. Unfortunately, that just is not in the cards for me, and so we will be satisfied with what we have. And if you wonder and if you worry if I'm going to abandon Heroes of Might and Magic 2, I will tell you right now that the answer is no. I will not abandon Heroes of Might and Magic 2. This game has my heart. It is my favorite in the series, but I'm also interested in seeing what a worthy successor to the series could do for us. I'm very much looking forward to that. Folks, we are wrapping up the scenario. Ariel is sallying forth to take care of this hero here, and up in this top corner, it's going to be Rathmont, who levies these final troops here on day 1. It sends them into Crota. Crota has no chance. It's going to be a glorious victory, and with that, orange player is vanquished. If you look at the minimap, we own this minimap. It is ours. And while this is not the very fastest scenario I've ever done, this is a pretty A-OK score. 64 days with impossible difficulty, score of 248, rating of a black dragon. For a moment, I thought it made it into my high scores. It turns out it does not, just barely. Still, the number to beat is 251. We were 3 points off of getting into my top score. Maybe I should have invested in a mage guild so that way I could have gotten a dimension door and finished this up just a little bit quicker. So we started off in this position here with the Necromancers. We went through a what do you call it, Zounds of Peasants and then a Legion of Peasants. We worked our way through the cracked earth area under that Necromancer castle. We came straight to our win condition of this dragon city. We were able to leverage the dragons against these barbarian foes here in the cracked earth. We were able to eventually secure this area, although we had many forays by the enemy from the center. We eventually went up and we defeated green for ourselves. We took out those green wizards. If you play this map as the green wizards, you can expect that little area up there for yourself. And after we had done that, it looks like the warlocks had gotten 2 black dragon towers in their 2 northernmost castles that we were able to overwhelm and defeat. Ranlu turned into an excellent hero there at level 18, level 17, with good attack, good defense, a good spell power, and good knowledge. So overall, folks, it turned into a wonderful scenario. I was happy for it, and this, of course, is the battlefield in the very center where much is to be done. So with that being said, thanks for the time, thanks for the energy. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Until that time,